So welcome to the first Friday event hosted by Communication Leadership Program at University of Washington, and welcome all prospective students. We're so happy to have you here. I am Liao Zhao, the head of outreach at Communication Leadership Program. And today we'll have an exciting conversation about internship searching, especially in the field of marketing, content strategy, and UX design. And you will have the opportunity to hear from 3 outstanding Comm Lead students and alumni to learn about how they landed their positions and the necessary skills or tips for internships. So let me introduce them one by one first. And please feel free to turn on your camera to say hi. And they are Roshni Arang, Corporate Strategy Intern Marketing and Communications at Applied Materials. Lucy Hu, UX design intern at Dell Technologies. And also, hi, welcome. And also Pritash, thank you. Just turn on your camera in time. Marketing strategy intern at T-Mobile. Welcome, everyone. We're so pleased to have them here. So now let me turn it to our panelists and let me start by asking if you could tell us more about yourself, your roles, what did you work on during your internships? Maybe we can start with Roshni.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, everyone. My name is Roshni Arun, and I worked as a corporate strategy intern in marketing and communications at Applied Materials. So Applied Materials is mostly into the semiconductor business, and they're in the Bay Area in California. And my internship was mostly about internal communications and marketing. So I helped them benchmark their existing website with their competitor website within the company. And the other thing that I helped them do was build a website from scratch, which they were mostly looking at launching just for their executives. So I did a lot of UI UX design, and I also helped them to launch that website internally. So everything to do with communication assets such as emails, FAQ documents in terms of why that website is really being done in the first place, and also newsletters. So I did all of that in my internship. So glad to be here today. Back to you, Leah.
Thank you, Roshni. Lucy.
There, my name is Lucy. Thank you for inviting me tonight this afternoon, Liao. I am from cohort 22, and I'm in the track of MCDM. So during the summer, I interned at Dell at Austin, Texas. So basically what I did during my internship, I had a 10-week of internship, and mostly what I did is I was given a task of like to do a personal, it's like a solo project, which we have to finish it within 8 weeks and present it to like a broad of like VPs and like managers. And it is very different from what Roshni did. And because for Dell, all the interns, no matter what kind of role they're doing, they are asked to do an individual project. So it's not that relevant to what Dell is doing in their company, but basically it is sort of mini project that they wanted like the interns to accomplish during the internship time. So.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting. We can talk more about your individual project later, Lucy. Pritesh.
Hey everyone, I'm Pritesh from cohort 21. So it's been a while since I did my internship. I was at T-Mobile. I was working with their loyalty marketing team, mainly on customer retention. And I had to complete a project in the span of 12 weeks, which basically involved increasing the likelihood to recommend. So if you're a T-Mobile customer, you're happy, but how do you convert that T-Mobile customer into a super fan who advocates for the brand and makes other people, purchase T-Mobile or join T-Mobile? So that was my project, went on for 12 weeks. During that internship period, I also did a lot of cross-functional networking, just made the most of it to speak with as many people as I could to potentially see if I could get a job in any other team, because I knew from day one that my team was not going to be hiring in that position. So it was just a 12-week period of for me in that particular team. I also got to chat with the CEO for a couple of minutes, which I used to pitch a project to him. So basically, I was there to do one thing, but I tried to do as much as I could in that 12-week span. Back to you, Leo.
Thank you, Pritesh. So now let's move on to the next question. Like, what kind of skills do you think are essential to find an internship like yours? Anything you learned from Comm Lead will be helpful for you either find the internships or work on your internship. And I think that's where Lucy could talk more about the individual project that you did for your work. So maybe we can start with Lucy this time.
Sure. Actually, really relevant to what we learned here from Comm Lead. So for my project, so that's more about like what I did during my internship. So I actually we were given the task to do so my manager gave me a really broad topic. For my topic, it was future of productivity, which is very broad, and you have to really narrow down to a specific topic that you wanted to really dig more into. And there's no limits on like what you can do or can't. So basically, you just have to see what is achievable within 8 weeks. So what I did was, considering like I had a background in communication, and also just I was there the first 2 weeks I was there, I find lots of problem within just like the small group and the larger group. There's lots of problem with like communication because it was in a setting where there's so many people and you're trying to connect with the right person and you don't really know how to reach out to them and like all of that kind of questions. So it's all relevant to communication. So for my project, I actually created an app or like a platform more like to help internal for internal people within the company to connect with each other. So it's more about just communicating with people. So it's not even relevant to Dell. Actually, it is connected to what their, I guess, culture and within their like internal networking. But the goal of this tool is more about to connect people and connecting to the right person. And they actually really like this topic because they think it's very unique. So I think that a lot of it comes from Comm Lead, what we learned in here, and like lots of, I guess there's lots of like thinkings from just like communication and like efficiency within the internal community. So yeah.
Got it, Lucy. So it sounds like you did a project relevant with internal communication or organizational communication for Dell, right? That's
Right.
a very hot topic for our curriculum as well. We also have some similar curriculum classes talk about internal communication. Thank you. Pritesh, ready? Yeah. I know you have been graduate for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, so for me particularly, the future of marketing class was useful to find my internship because all the concepts that we discussed in that class and then the way the projects were structured, that actually helped me in my interview because I was able to talk not only about what was happening in the realm of marketing in the present, but how that world was going to change in the next 5 to 10 years, or at least have our best estimate of how it was going to change in the next 5 to 10 years was. So I think those pieces actually helped me stand out in my interview process. Uh, Beyond that, really, there were a couple of other interviews I had later on, which involved creating case studies from scratch. So again, the future of marketing class, we've done that for 6 weeks nonstop, where you create like a project every week and then you present it to the professor. So that really helped hone that entire process. So it was really easy to do it for the interview when it came along.
Got it. So is that like future of marketing class is very helpful for your
Mhm.
yeah. And who
For my
taught that class?
Rob Salkowitz taught that
Okay.
class. So yeah, that class, and also actually the visual storytelling class came in really helpful. But that was more for my full-time interviews because both of them are tied together, even though they're very different subjects. So that helped.
Cool. Would you like to type that class in the chat? So just in
Sure.
case students who are interested in marketing could
Mhm.
take a look and choose the class
Absolutely.
for future. Yeah. Does it provide in the spring quarter or summer quarter or
So
maybe every quarter? Yeah.
I took Rob's Future of Marketing class in the winter quarter. I think he also does it in the fall quarter now. And I think he does the visual storytelling class only in the spring quarter.
Got it. Cool. Thank you for sharing. Roshni.
Sure. I think for me, one, having a portfolio definitely helped. I know that out of Ekin's class, one of the main deliverables now is having a portfolio. So anytime in any interview that they'd ask me for sample pieces, just sending them over a website was super helpful. I know that in certain interviews, they were actually very surprised and they thought that it was a very nice way of collating everything together. And in terms of classes, for me personally, storytelling with data has been very instrumental because I know that in my previous role at Applied Materials, that team worked heavily on Tableau. So when they got to know that I had some experience with Tableau, Data Wrapper, and Flourish that we used in storytelling with data, they thought that that was giving me an edge over other candidates who just did not know a lot about data coming from communications. And also mainly networking. With like circling back to what Pritesh said, at one of the intern events, I happened to meet very senior executives and directors at the company, and I felt that they were very great mentors at the end of it. So not everything will probably culminate in a job offer, but you just get to learn a lot from their experiences, and then that helps you in the long run.
Cool. Thank you, Roshni. I know you talk about portfolio. First, it's not necessary for everyone to get a portfolio if you're just looking for an internship, but it's definitely like a plus if you have a portfolio. So, Roshni, do you want to share a little bit more about what you did with your portfolio and how it helpful for your internship searching? Like, yeah, just trying to give students a little bit more information.
Actually, that was one of the key deliverables in Ekin's class that we had to have a portfolio at the end of it. And I know that Comm Lead also did a workshop where we had an alumni come in and teach us how to do a portfolio. So my portfolio was basically just all my final projects, just so that I don't lose it. I didn't do anything fancy because I'm not from the UI UX realm, so I didn't have any fancy projects out there. It was just the final projects of everything that I did. Because in storytelling with data, we did like 2, 3 blogs with a lot of charts and graphs in it. So I just didn't want to lose those out. So they're basically links of all of those blogs. So after every class, I just make it a point to go out and put my final project on my website because it's usually a presentation or a blog. So it just gives the interviewer an idea of the different skill sets that you might have.
This is very helpful, Roshni, and I think it's very smart to put together the final project. I think some students are asking like, what should I put for my portfolio? It doesn't have to be fancy from another previous job or internship. It could be just what you did for Comm Lead, right? Yeah, good to know. Now let's move to the next question. I think that's where students want to learn, will be most interested. That's how did you land on your internships? Like, how did you find it? Tell us your application process and if you got any referral from anyone. Did you get it from just applying or did you get it just from an internal network? Pritesh?
Sure. So I applied. So I had a two-part strategy. Whenever I used to see a job which I really liked, I used to just go ahead and apply for it because even though I knew people at the company, it would take time for me to get in touch with them and then for them to respond to me again. So I'd just go ahead and apply. And then I'd ask for a referral after applying to another email ID. And then I would apply again from that email ID if I got the response in time. With the internship that I actually got at T-Mobile, I got a referral from my flatmate's family member. So, and she's actually an engineer, nothing to do with marketing, right? But it still worked to put my resume forward to the hiring manager and to the HR. I also, similar to Roshni, I always had a website. I also made sure my resume stood out in, with all the relevant points that the job description required. I also, over time, I also like try to add links to my resume or QR codes or augmented reality codes to my resume in my email signature, just to have multiple touch points with the recruiter. I'm not sure how much it helped, but it was just small ways I could think of to stand out. So these were really a mix of strategies I used. Beyond that, over the course of 2 years being at UW, being at Comm Lead, I realized that it's not just your friends or your professional network. It's people who you meet through your friends or people you stumble into at the library who could somehow help you, not just with referrals, but maybe they could recommend you to a hiring manager or something. So what I'm trying to say here is just be open to connections. And also I always try to like give back, make sure that, the person I'm asking something from, they get something of value when they talk to me, just so it doesn't feel like an entirely one-sided conversation, or it's not just me asking them for something. So that's really something that's been beneficial for me in the last 2 years, I'd say.
Super cool, super cool. Pritesh did a lot of network. I remember, I think he almost networks with everyone that he know and start with an informational interview. Yeah, that's good. Roshni, tell us your story.
Sure. So for me, I just applied, like Pritesh said, anything that I saw online. I also tried to get referrals, but like Pritesh mentioned again, people would not get back on time, and on many opportunities, it led to me losing out on those roles. So what I told myself was that I just go ahead and apply in case I don't get it back in a stipulated amount of time. Again, there are two different schools of thought here. A lot of people tell you that it's mandatory to get a referral, it'll help you stand out. But the internships that I landed on, I just did not use any referrals for those. I must have interviewed for at least 9 to 10 roles, and at least 7 or 8 of them were without referrals. So for me, I just believe that your resume should be your most important point. If you get a referral, of course, it's a great thing, but just don't rely on it and end up on losing on something for sure. That's been my experience.
Thanks. Thanks. Yeah, I would say if you're applying for a full-time job, probably a lot of networking is very helpful. But for internships, most of time, yeah, you just go ahead to apply directly, and people will recognize Comm Lead program, and they would love to hire us. Lucy, your story.
Yeah, so for me, similar to Roshni, I also just cold applied for Dell. For some of the other companies that applied for internship, I did get referral, and like, I think it also like when we talking about referral, there are different type of referrals. So there are like more stronger referral where it directly goes to the hiring manager, which for those referrals, I would say definitely reach out, and that is like a strong referral. Which in my case, I applied for another company, which um, so I got connected with this alumni from my undergrad, and she gave me the referral, and she is actually the hiring manager. So she is the one who's interviewing me. So that's like the perfect line of story. So, but not in all cases you can do that. Mostly they just it's a different role. So like what Pritesh were saying, it's like someone in this company, they're even referral some another role from a different team. So in that case, I would say if you can't get back on time, I would say the similar strategy, just go ahead and apply for it, because timing is very important in internships, because many of the applications, I don't know if they even actually take a look at it, because they're really looking at the ones that are first come, and they just read through those, and if they see enough of candidates that they think are qualified, they may not even give you a chance if you applied it late. So I would say that's my strategy. And also when we were earlier, we were talking about portfolio. So that is, I would say that is kind of a key or essential thing to have for UX designer, because as a designer, that is, I would say, beyond after they look at the resume, the first thing they're gonna click is your resume, it's your portfolio. Sorry. So that is something they wanted to see, what you did and all the case studies you've done. So I would say definitely that is very important for designers. And I would say for my portfolio, there are I tried to take classes in Comm Lead that has a portfolio for like in the end of the quarter, there is something that I can put into my portfolio. And I do think that really helps because we can only have limited amount of work within our portfolio. So it needs to be the most recent ones and the ones that are actually like you did within the group or in school or your previous work. So, and for lots of like work related, it is under NDA. So lots of times you can't really share what you did in work. So lots of time it's actually just schoolwork. So that's what I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Lucy. I have a follow-up question for everyone in terms of your application process. I'm not sure if we touched about interview, but a lot of students after their application, they start to do several rounds interview at different companies. So they might want to learn a little bit more about that. So could you please share a little bit more about your interview process, like how many rounds that you got? And what you think that you did right in the interview, and what's something that you think probably people should be aware of or try to avoid during the interview. Yeah, Roshni?
Sure. It again, the number of interviews vary very largely from company to company. While some big tech companies have like 4 to 5 rounds, some other companies might just have one round. And again, it depends on the frequency of them. I know that with applied materials, like literally the entire process got done in 1 week. The recruiter got back to me on one day, and then I had 2 follow-up interviews, and I had the offer in my hand within 1 week. But it varies very largely from company to company. Some go on for months together. And what really helped me was being very confident when you go into the interview, knowing what you've exactly put in on your resume, because they usually ask you certain points, explaining those. How did you get onto that particular metric, for example? And if you have work experience, they kind of ask you why you probably made the shift. And if you're probably shifting roles, because I started off as an engineer, so usually everybody has the question of why I made that pivot from engineering to communications. So really being able to balance your answers and being able to validate for them. And if you have a group of friends that you could just interview with, I know that we did that, and that helped me a lot. We had a group of friends, including Pritesh, who's on this call, and I think that helped me a lot personally. When you have a group of friends who can be there, that you can go out, talk about what you feel before a particular role, getting their insights can prove to be very beneficial.
Thank you, Roshni. Pritesh?
So for my internship at T-Mobile, I think I had to go through, there was one recruiter round, there was a round with the hiring manager, followed by a round with one of the teammates I was going to work with, finally followed by a round with the director. And after that, the recruiter just called me one fine day and offered me the role. So what really stood out to me in those interviews were there was 50% of the interviews were about trying to really understand the role and what I would bring to it and my experience. But 50% of it was really how I match with the team members. So it's not just about how you will be able to perform the tasks, but also whether you're a good fit for the team as a whole, how you'll work or synergize with them. I try to, alongside bringing my experience and skill sets, I try to bring my own real personality into the interview, just so that I don't be robotic and answer practice questions or practice answers. So I think that helped, because one of the questions they asked me was, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And to that I answered, that depends on the visa, doesn't it? So really just made them also laugh a little bit, but also showed that I understand the intricacies of the situation as someone who's on a visa, but I'm also good enough for the role. So that helped. Beyond that, I think when I was applying for full-time roles, as Roshni mentioned, me, her, couple of others, we were practicing interviews with each other almost almost like once or twice every week, just to be in the zone of interviewing and answering. And we used to pick each other's answers apart or ask follow-up questions. And that I think helped everyone a lot. I think almost everyone in that group either got an internship or a full-time job. So that was beneficial. So really, my suggestion to all of you is work with your friends, ask each other questions, make it a professional environment, sit across a table or something, take notes as you're answering questions and give honest feedback. That will be really helpful.
Thank you, Pritesh. I think you mentioned something really important, like the team will not only value if you are the person who could do the work, but they will also value if you personality match with their team culture. I think this is something that we want to share with our students as well. Sometimes if you don't get the position, probably they will feel like you're not matched with their team culture, but it doesn't mean that you cannot do the job. So don't feel frustrated about yourself as well. Just be confident all the time. Lucy, your turn.
So for Dell, I only had one round of interview, so it was only a 30 minutes interview with my hiring manager, and kind of like what Pritesh were talking about, I got really clicked with the interviewer. So it was so I can share this story. So basically, what I was doing is I introduced myself and then I shared my work. And she asked me, "Is there anything you wanted to share with me?" So I shared my project. I share a full, I was trying to share like one full story of like what I did for one of my case study, and then I was having trouble with my network, so the link was like I wasn't able to share anything after a certain point. So I was like, what should we do? Like, do you have any questions for me? She's like, let's just have a chat. So we were just in a really regular and spontaneous conversation. She asked me like what else you wanted to do if you're not doing UX design. So it's really like irrelevant to like what the group is doing. So I personally felt like I got really clicked with my interviewer. So just like what we were talking about, because they have a ton of qualified candidates, and sometimes it's about how well you or like your vibe with the team, but also like how well you click with your manager, because she is the one who I will work with in the future. So during my internship, she was my mentor, so I mainly work with her. So she probably felt like we match. I don't know, like our vibe really matched, or um, it was just really enjoyable during our conversation and interview. So I would say that's also very important. And other tips that I have during other interviews with other companies, I would say is I had I was like given lots of questions on the behavioral questions with other companies. So they're trying to see who you are, how well to like work with you, who you really are, like how you solve problems and these kind of questions. I got asked lots of questions about how you find clarity through ambiguity. So it's hard to answer these questions and you have to provide examples like how you find clarity when you are trying to like digging into different perspective in the beginning early phase of exploring of a project. So I guess lots of that depends on what this company, what this group is looking for. So for the other ones that I didn't got offer because there are certain skill set that they are requiring that I don't have. I think it just really depends on, like, you have to go back to the job description and look into who is this person that they're trying to find. And sometimes you have to just trying to put yourself more like fit into that role or that person. Sometimes you can't really do that because you're just not, you don't have that skill set, or it's not something you're interested in. So I think just try your best to be yourself in your interview, because it's also a conversation. You're trying to evaluating them. Are they perfect for you, or what is their vibe? So also, like, I would say during interview, ask lots of questions as well, because it's not just a time where they question you. It's also you wanted to know what is it like to work there. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Lucy. Very good answers. It's a two-way communication to see if you match them and if they match you. And it's important to show your personality during the interview and to see if you can get along with their team and manager. So think about that. Okay, so the last question is, can you share one piece of advice for our students, which I think you already share a lot of them, but if there's only one that you can pick up, what advice are you going to share with our students who are currently looking for an internship or preparing for their interviews? Any additional things?
I can actually go first there. One, like Lucy mentioned, that has played a lot to my advantage is asking questions, especially in the end when they say, "Do you have any questions for me?" Please don't leave it blank. It shows how excited you are about the role. So always, and before going for any role, prep about the company, know what the company does, spend some time in trying to go onto their website, understanding their mission, values, what they're really working on, and about the team as well, if you can find out anything. Because they try to ask you about the company in general. And because we interview for so many companies, we just apply to so many that we tend to lose track of which company we applied to. And they vary a lot in terms of their industries as well. So doing that amount of background work before going in for an interview. And the other thing is really being authentic. They really see how authentic you are, whether you really are interested in working with the team, whether you can gel with their particular teammates, like how Pritesh and Lucy were mentioning. And the other thing is that it can be very easy to get disheartened very easily because you don't hear back, you get cold responses. And in many instances, you go until the final round, but it does not culminate in an offer, because that happened to me. I remember that I kept applying, and there were a couple of roles that I thought were like that absolute fit for me. And they were the final rounds, and I thought that, okay, this is it. But then they didn't culminate in a job offer, and it was extremely heartbreaking. So it's very easy for you to feel let down, to feel that you are not up to the mark, but just have your near ones near you so that you can talk about it, like you have that support system. And at the end, things will really fall into place. It's important to have those friends, to have your family members that you can go out and share what you really feel like. So that's been my experience for sure.
Thank you, Roshni. Mental health is very important. Yeah. Pritesh or Lucy? Yeah, Pritesh.
Yeah, sure. I can go. What Roshni mentioned, when at the end of the interview, they'll ask you, do you have any questions? One important question which I always try to ask them is, what would they want me to achieve in that role within the first month, then 6 months down the line, and then in the longer term, just so I can show proactiveness and a willingness to make an immediate impact. Uh, Another important thing is that vibe match, which I mentioned, is really important because you could get the role, but that doesn't mean you'll be happy in the role, and you'll be spending 3 months in that company. And if you don't really vibe with your manager or your teammates, then you may not want to take a particular internship. So just getting the right sense of the person and the team from your end is also very important. It's not just them understanding you; it's also about you understanding them. Finally, uh, behavioral questions. There's a lot of questions which are ambiguous, and the first thing that pops to the top of your mind will be, oh, the answer to this is communication. I'll just talk it out. I'll just talk it out. I'll just talk it out. But when they ask all of these behavioral questions, what they really want to see is your thought process. And so practice and practice it in a particular format. Okay, what the problem is, how will you approach that problem, what do you think about it, and then the particular solution. And then finally, once you've provided a solution, a post, if you're a marketing person, a post campaign analysis, just so you can benchmark for the future and how you'll do it better in the future. All of those things are important. And finally, uh, just keep applying, because sometimes they'll tell you that they want to move you forward to the next round. Happened to me very recently. They'll tell you they want to move you forward to the next round, but they may just ghost you. And it's nothing personal, honestly. You just need to keep going at it. I think I applied to like 120 positions and I got 2 interview calls, of which one converted to my internship. So it's a mix of, quality as well as quantity.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Pritesh. Lucy.
So one of the advice I would have, or I kind of wish I did a little better during my internship, is to keep everything more organized. So definitely have like keep when you applied for something, what is the website, the job description, because it gives you reference back when you suddenly like you heard from a company, like you're like, oh, did I even apply for this company? Because sometimes that happens and you wanted to make sure you can go back to the website, you can go back to like see when you applied, what you did along this way. So I felt like that's very important for me personally. And also just in general, as a designer, like sometimes we have a lot of files with like different apps, like softwares and stuff. So just like I think trying to be um organize like each case study, like what are some of the images that I need to keep, what are things that needs to be put on the portfolio, what is like the slide deck that you're preparing for your interview. Like all of that needs to be very organized. And I I know there are some companies they wanted to see your actual file because they want to see how organized you are, because you can be really messy yourself, but when you work with others, when you work in a company, they want to make sure you're very organized, because you're not just only working yourself, you're working with 10 other people or more. So everybody needs to know what these names mean and like what these files are for. So you don't want to explain to them every single time. So I think that is something we need to like develop this habit, or I think it's not even just a habit. It's very important to keep it all organized in work, during work, and also just during job hunting process. And another tip that I really wanted to share, I don't really know if that also applies for marketing or other roles, but for UX designers, I happen to know there's a website that I use a lot to mock up my interview and like getting advice on my resume. It is called ADP List. If anyone who didn't really know anything about this, I feel like it is something you can try. I did find lots of help through this website. It's free mentorship that people provide, and lots of those people are senior level or hiring managers themselves. So it was really helpful for me to um, so even though I didn't really mock up a lot of interview ahead of time, I had conversations with these people like almost 2 or 3 times a week. And that makes me more confident and know how to like introduce myself in a professional way, and like how to speak in a more confident way. And all of that, I think it really helps me keep me in this mindset of like job hunting. So you have to choose what words you use and like make you feel like you're very professional, and just like I think all of these needs practice. So I think that is also just practicing with friends. I would say that probably helps a lot as well. So just like start early and start practicing
Very
definitely helps.
helpful advices, Lucy. You talk about the free mentorship site. Do you mind to copy the site name or the link to the chats so other people can take a look and find it? Yeah, that will be helpful for our students. AD, please. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for sharing with us your career journey and tips to get into this field. So now I think we have time, a little bit time for Q&A. Let's answer one or two questions from the chat. Any questions, from our participants, from current students or prospective students? Or you can turn on your camera and mute yourself to ask questions directly. We'll wait for 1 minute. If there's no questions, we'll get into the breakout rooms directly. Just give everyone a little bit of time. Okay, while we're waiting, I'm also curious. Let's ask a question about math. Like do you remember how many jobs that you applied in total and how many interviews that you got and how many offers that you got?
I can share for me, I applied for 70. So it's not a lot. I got 2 interviews and one was failed. So, and the other one I did get to the final round, and but yeah, I just didn't. I thought I was like a perfect fit for that company, and I was anticipating something in the next week, and they're not giving me any answers. So, like what Roshni were talking about, and during that time, I was having interview with Dell as well. So then I heard back from Dell quickly. So
Got it. 1 out of 70. Yeah, not bad. Roshni, do you remember your numbers?
I think it was about 120 or 130. And I had two offers at the end of it. But I gave about 10 interviews for different companies. So out of 10 interviews, I had 2 job offers at the end of it.
That's a lot. That's a lot. 10 interviews is a lot. Yeah. Pritesh?
For my internship, I applied to around 130 places, and I got, I think, 2 interview calls from 2 different companies. For my full-time job, I think approximately I got 2 job offers which were revoked because of the recession. Actually, 3 job offers which were revoked because of the recession. 1 job offer which I could not take because my EAD had not arrived in time. And I got 2 other job offers, of which I was able to choose one. But I had like 10, 11 different interviews with different companies. But for my full-time offers, I applied to more than 200 places, roles. Yeah, and many more roles because duplicate roles at same companies as well.
Okay, so 100 job applications just sounds like an average number for the students. So just give other students a general idea. So if you apply 20, 30 and you say no response, don't feel bad. You have more to go. Now let's see the chat. We got one question from Priyaka Jen. And the question is, what is the right time to start applying for internships? That's good. Good question. And another question is, should we tweak our resume for every internship we apply for? Those are very typical questions that students have. Yeah. Feel free to unmute yourself to answer.
I can take that. The right time is yesterday, but you should be applying right now. I started applying the moment I got into Comm Lead and I came here. But it's never too late. I think I know people who started applying in January or even February and managed to get internships. I think Roshni was one of them. And should we tweak our resume? Not for every internship, but only for those internships which you really want, because tweaking your resume 100 times for 100 different roles is just too much. I usually only tweak the names of the role just to make it more easily understandable to the recruiter, because even if you have the skill set, the recruiter only gets to see the bullet points which they've been served by the hiring manager, and so it's really the interview with the hiring manager that's important. You just need to get in front of them. So tweak the important parts of your resume for the jobs which you're really keen on. Otherwise, uh, not really worth applying. And I only applied to paid internships.
I can just add on to that. I just feel like it's totally okay to start applying from Jan because it was my personal experience. I feel companies have very different timelines because I know that for software engineers, for example, they literally hire 1 year like way ahead, like they hire like 1 year before. But it's not the case with like communication roles, at least from my experience. I genuinely started very seriously from January. I remember looking out in fall quarter and I was not able to find anything and I was a little freaked. I thought that I was late, but a lot of roles started opening up in January. So I feel this is a perfect time to start applying. And probably timelines always change. So I think it's fine. And in terms of the resume, I typically used one, but if it was a company that I was really keen on, I spent that time. I think I must have spent 1.5 hours sometime on just one particular role because it was my dream role. But it still ended up landing into the bin. But I used to spend a lot of time on the roles that I was very passionate on, and I was definitely looking at only paid roles as well.
Yeah.
We're talking about, I actually started late January, so like beginning early February. So I would say it's never too late. Like you, I was really selective when I apply for internships. I only apply for those uh that I really like. Because for UX designers, there's a lot of roles that are more leaning towards UI, even though they call it UX designer. Within the job description, you can see it's more of a visual UI design, and that's not what I wanted to do in the future. So I just don't even apply for those. Um, it took me a really long time to prepare for my portfolio. It actually took me um, actually more than half years. I've been preparing it, like all the case studies and internships and like putting them together. Like all of that needs lots of time. And even after I applied for the internships, I still like tweak them like every day. Like I think I spent a ton of time in my portfolio. As for resume, I I typically only have one, similar to what they said. I only have one, and I only tweak my resume for. I remember the first couple ones that I was trying to like change to like what the job description were saying, and I tried to like change it a more fit with that job title and like job description. But then I realized it's you just can't. It's a lot of work. So I started to only tweak my resume for those that I really wanted to get in. So I'd say that works for me. So, and I also only applied for paid internship. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you. Again, thank you for sharing those valuable experience with our students. Let's continue the conversation in the breakout rooms. Okay, thank you for answering. Yeah. So we have 3 breakout rooms for each panelist, and our events coordinator Millie has invite you to join the breakout room. Feel free to choose the one that you like to join, and you can also jump from one person's room to another person's room after you finish the conversation, and the whole event will close at 5:30. So no need to come back to the main room after 5:30. If you have any additional questions about Comm Lead program in general, if you're prospective students, feel free to stay in the main room, and me and Millie will be here to answer your questions. And let me pause here. Thank you for being part of our event tonight. See you in the breakout room.